Hey guys, how y'all doing today? It is Saturday, February the 3rd, and I've got today's interview with David. We just finished doing the interview here just a few minutes ago, and I'm gonna go ahead and put up the first section of this interview today. This one runs about 22 minutes or somewhere around there. Um, I'm not exactly sure. I think I might just go ahead and post the rest of our interview up tomorrow and then start back over again on Monday doing the normal videos. But for today and tomorrow at least, it will be the interview with David. I might throw up a short video tomorrow on top of it. I'm not quite sure yet, but we'll just see how my day plans out. Um, I'm not going to do any movie suggestions or anything like that today. I'm just going to post this video up for you guys. And that's about it. Like I said, I might post up a short video tomorrow as well on top of the rest of the interview. But like I said, we'll just see how that all plays out. But I hope that you guys find today's interview with David to be a good one. I really appreciate him taking the time to come in and talk with me. Uh, it was really nice to speak with David and hear his perspective and his side of things. And, David did drink for quite some time and just recently, back on December 11th, quit drinking. And David, when he quit, started watching these videos, and he's been a part of this community now since I really got back and started doing the videos back in at the end of November, beginning of December. He started watching, so he's been here since I've really been here doing this stuff, and I really appreciate him being here for as long as he has. And I'm sure you guys have seen him in the comments section. His name is David in there. He does hop in the comments and add to almost every single video. So it's really cool to get a face behind the name and just to hear his side of the story and not just hear my story all the time, to get it from another person's perspective. So like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I sure enough enjoyed talking to David. He's a really cool guy. We not only did we have our interview, I've spoken to David quite a few times now, and we have had quite the conversation. We've talked about all kinds of different stuff, and he's a really neat dude to talk to. So like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I will be finishing up the rest of the interview probably tomorrow. I might drag it out to Monday. It just depends. I got to edit it all together and see how it looks. But anyway, guys, y'all have a great day today. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye-bye.
I'm good. How are you?
All right. I think we've got all the bugs worked out finally. So we are definitely recording now. We are ready to go.
Good.
So back to our original talk that we had. I don't have my questions right here in front of me, but we started off talking about your childhood,
Right.
and what your experience was with alcohol from being a child. Could you go into that a little bit? Like I know the story now, but could you go back over it again for everybody and just what it was like for you, your parents, how much they drank, when you started drinking, at what age, and how that all worked out for you.
Sure. So I was born in the mid 60s. I have one younger sister, one older sister. Grew up in a two-parent family. My dad was in the Canadian Air Force, so moving around was a big deal and happened often. And I switched schools at the end of kindergarten, at the end of grade 4, at the end of grade 6, at the end of grade 9, at the end of grade 11, and then into my final year, grade 12, in a brand new school, which was difficult. Growing up was fun, pretty uneventful, had a normal childhood, I think. Did lots of family stuff, camped, fished, water skied, skidooed, uh, played outdoors, played in the mud, probably ate some mud. Um, Went to college after high school, got a degree, and then moved on into my career. And regarding alcohol, the first time I ever tried alcohol, I think I was about 5 years old, and my dad was having a beer with friends, and I don't know if I asked or he offered, but I took a sip of beer and I thought it was the most disgusting tasting thing I had ever drank up to that point. And I remember running into the bathroom, spitting it in the toilet. Um, and then I don't think I drank other than maybe a sip of wine at Christmas because it was a big deal. I think the first time I ever drank, I think to the point of intoxication, I was in either grade 8 or 9. Went to a party with friends. And that sort of started sort of weekend drinking occasionally. It wasn't a big deal
How intoxicated
or
did you get your first time?
not fall down drunk. Um, but it was the first time I experienced the feeling of what liquor does to one's body.
When the first time that you drank, did you? Because I remember the first time I drank, and I remember that like warm, fuzzy feeling that came all over me, and I knew right then like this is probably going to be a problem for me. Did you feel that way at all?
No, I don't remember thinking anything other than what I was feeling in that moment. I didn't think, oh, this is going to be a problem. I like this too much. In fact, that first time I got drunk, tipsy, whatever state I was in, I actually got punched in the face.
Oh no.
So, and I was at a opposing school's house party with some friends from my school. I didn't know anybody at this party. The chap that walked up to me and just cold cocked me thought that the girl I had arrived with was my girlfriend, and he, I guess, had an interest in her, and he tried to take me out. So my first experience being tipsy and drunk was not that positive of experience, I guess. It
Yeah.
didn't deter me, but it was wow. Um, that was pretty crazy. So I remember drinking in grade 9 every now and then with friends. We'd go halfers on a Mickey, which is like the small little bottle of booze, and we go halfers on it. And so, what was I drinking? 6 ounces. I can't remember what a Mickey is, but it wasn't a lot, but it was enough to get us
Is it
each
basically
drunk.
like a half pint?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. So it's the smallest
The
bottle of
smallest
liquor.
bottle. Yep.
Yeah.
Looks like a little. It
So
looks like a little flask.
flask,
Yep.
exactly.
Okay.
So we would go halfers on that, and that would be enough to get us drunk. And um, but it wasn't a regular thing. It was just something we did every now and then. And then in I moved at the end of grade 9 and into grade 10. And again, drinking was just sort of an on again, off again thing. Sometimes we drank on the weekends, sometimes we didn't. It wasn't a big part of what I was doing socially. Um, and there was never, I mean, my parents always had alcohol in the house, but neither one of my parents drank. My mom, she, I guess, technically got drunk twice in her life, and I was alive and remember both of those. My dad, he would drink if somebody came over, he'd offer them a beer, but there was no regular alcohol consumption in our house.
Okay.
And my dad drank socially if my parents were out for a dinner or some kind of function to do with the military. They would have dinners and dances every now and then. So my dad would drink socially then. My mother never drank. Um, so yeah, so alcoholism wasn't anything I knew personally growing up. My grandfather was an alcoholic, I was told, I had met him several times growing up, but he had become sober, so I never knew my grandfather as an alcoholic.
Okay. So when did you start to pick up the alcohol to the point like where you started drinking, not every day, but on more often than not?
When I was probably about 24, 25, and this married couple that I was hanging out with, they were a couple years older than me. They liked their um, beer and they liked their pot. And I remember during that time, I started hanging out with them pretty much exclusively. And I remember this probably went on for about 6 or 7 months. And every day after work, I would go to the liquor store and pick up a case of 12. And then I would go up to their house. Often I would have dinner with them. And so every night, and they also smoke marijuana, and I hadn't been smoking pot, at least not regularly, but that became a habit for 6 or 7 months. And the 12 beers, we would split those, and then we would smoke weed. So I was pretty intoxicated every night of the week for 6 or 7 months. And then something inside me said, you got to stop this. This isn't healthy. Plus, I was also driving at the time and I was worried. I always felt like I was fine to drive home, but I think I was just kidding myself. Fortunately, nothing ever bad happened to me or anyone else. So that went on, like I said, for about 6 or 7 months. And then I just cut them off completely out of my life. Like, without any reason, no explanation. But I thought that that was my only solution. And then I never drank again for probably 4 or 5 years, maybe socially, but never daily.
Okay. So you just drank occasionally here and there, but not often. And then, so that was like 24, 25, and then you went 4 or 5 years of just drinking occasionally, and then you got to around 30, and
Yeah. And then I had moved from a small town that I was in during my 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. I moved from a small town to a big city, and I didn't drink when I got here. I would even go clubbing and I would just drink pop. Um, but then some friends that I started hanging out with, they were drinkers, and I eventually sort of joined in. And it started out, and then a roommate of mine, he was a drinker and he would buy a 6 pack every night. And he'd come home, he'd say, hey, do you want one? And I would. And then it turned into I would buy a 6 pack one night, he would buy a 6 pack the next night. We'd each have 3 beers. And I even thought at that point that was a problem, 3 beers. Because it was a habit. It was happening like every night.
yeah.
And that roommate eventually left, and I stopped drinking completely and got into fitness more and working out and swimming. And then probably around 30, 32, 33, I started going to a cafe with a bunch of friends. And all we would do was meet after work, have coffee. And at one point, this cafe got a liquor license to serve beer. And then we started having a coffee, and then we would switch to beer. And then we would just go home. And then,
Can I ask you a question real quick? So when y'all were going, was this like an after work thing every day that y'all would do, or?
yeah,
eh,
7 days a week, just like clockwork. And so yeah, it went from coffee only to coffee and beer. Then it just went to beers only. Then it went beers only, and we would go to a pub and drink even more. And then it went from beers, pubs, and taking a 6-pack home. And eventually, this whole group of friends, I think because of alcohol fueling whatever, there was all kinds of fighting amongst all of us. And this group disbanded. And I think, left with a drinking problem at that point. So I moved all my drinking to home. And it started just with a 6-pack. And then it turned into an 8-pack. You can get 8-packs in Canada. Then it turned to a 12. And then it turned into a 15-pack, which is where I was.
Are the beers in Canada, are they 12-ounce beers? Or you buy 16-ounce?
Yeah, 12. They're
Okay.
just regular short cans, but our alcohol content in Canada is higher than yours.
What's the alcohol content there?
I can't remember. I want to say 6%. I don't
Okay.
know. It's higher than America's.
Is this like a light beer that you were drinking or something? Something?
No light beer. I was just drinking regular. It's called Molson Canadian. I guess it's not a light beer. It's just a regular can of beer. Not light, not calorie wise or anything like that.
I think
So
most beers in the
that's what I
States,
was.
I think most of them here run about 4.5%, 5%.
Yeah,
Your
ours are
run-of-the-mill
higher.
beers. Okay.
Yeah. So that went on from when the group disbanded, it was about 2005. And for 5 years solid, no, 7 years solid, I was drinking alone at home. I don't have a wife or kids, so I wasn't accountable to anybody. And then I went from a happy-go-lucky kind of drunk to not an angry drunk, but I did sort of lash out at my sister via voicemails and emails. And by 2012, my sister had had enough. She had told me that if I was to do anything like that one more time, she was going to get a restraining order against me. And that sort of woke me up.
Can I ask you a question really quick? I'm sorry.
Sure.
When because I haven't asked you this question yet, and we've talked multiple times at this point now, but you've told me about how you would send your sister those emails, the angry emails sometimes, and I can relate to that. I'm just wondering, because I know from my personal experience, I would start to get drunk, and then I would start getting this like depression, like kind of like sometimes like an anger, and I would start thinking about things that bothered me in the past, and I would tend to wait until I was like extremely intoxicated um, before I would address situations. If somebody had bothered me earlier that week, I would wait until I was drunk, and then I would call them on a whim. After I've had 4 liquor drinks, and then decide to chew them out. Was that what was going on when you would do that? You would start drinking and start like thinking about, I don't like what she said to me the other day. And
That pretty much was how it worked, because until I was into being intoxicated, I don't think I ever really thought much about what ended up being said in an email or on a phone call. But once I got into that intoxicated mind, something would pop up and I would, you know, get onto my keyboard and just start typing and hit send. And I actually thought about trying at one point getting a safe with an auto lock on it. So if I ever got intoxicated, I could put my laptop into a safe that would have a timer on it and it wouldn't open up again till the next day.
yeah,
So I would not be capable of doing anything like that. I
that's
never follow through with it, but I thought about it.
That's a great idea. You know, there's actually applications that you can put on your phone now, that allow people to do that. So like if you've been drinking, you can install an app, and I guess you can make it to where it will not send any text messages or anything. You can type them out and everything, but
Yeah.
they won't send. So you'll wake up the next day and be like, "Oh my gosh, look at all these text messages I almost sent last night and they didn't go through." So you were already
Yeah.
way ahead of the curve on those applications, man. Just imagine if you had thought about that idea and actually made an application years ago. You'd probably be rich right now.
Probably my life would be different, I'm sure, had I
Yeah,
not sent out those emails. And I would wake up in the morning, my eyes would open, and I would know that I had done something. I wasn't quite sure what I had wrote, but I knew it was bad. And I was hoping, praying to the internet gods, somehow this thing got lost in the ether of the world and it never was sent. And
yeah,
unfortunately, they all hit the target, unfortunately. And that had an impact and continues to have an impact on my relationship with my older sister to this
yeah,
day, like 14 years later.
yeah.
So at 2012, after getting that email, I don't know if she told me in a phone call or an email, but she said, the jig is up, Dave. You do this one more time and you're going to suffer. So I went to a detox facility for a week, and then I checked into an inpatient 30-day rehab program.
Gotcha.
That was in 2012.
So, have you had a conversation with your sister about those emails? I mean, have you guys worked things out since then, or is it still?
It's still a bone of contention, I think, with her. I mean, I've apologized many times verbally and in writing, and she was here visiting in August, and so this is 13 years later. And we got into a disagreement about something not related to liquor, and she brought up those emails and
Mm.
said she has a hard copy of every single one of them in a file.
Oh wow.
And I told her, I said I apologized, Kim, and she's acknowledged that I had apologized. But so yeah, so I know every time I get into a disagreement with her, that the possibility that that's going to come out again.
Yeah.
And so 12 years later, 13 years later, she still remembers, and she has not forgotten. I don't know if she's ever forgiven me. I don't think we'll ever have a really close, significant relationship because of that. Um, and I know her kids. She told me at one point she had told her kids that if they were ever visiting the city in which I live, and I live downtown, which is where my nieces would have, they're 29 and 28 now. She told me that she had told them that if you ever see your Uncle David on the street when you're visiting, turn around and walk away or cross the street.
Oh wow.
And that was pretty hurtful.
Yeah.
I've never brought that up to her, but it's completely, I have no relationship with my nieces. I don't even know them really. I know their names, but I have had, because my beef with my sister, she got her children involved. And so now you know, have no relationship
And that goes
with
back
them.
to the whole thing that I talk about a lot, is that it doesn't just affect us as individuals with our drinking. It affects our family, and unfortunately, sometimes we say things that we really didn't mean to say. And now, just like you said, you've got a couple nieces that you don't know. And that's just, one of the another good reason to stop drinking, because it just causes so many problems in our life. I know
Yeah,
I've dealt with the same thing.
yeah, and I mean, the older I get, and in my sober moments, I realize alcoholism, the ripple effect. It's like dropping a pebble in a lake, and the ripples just keep going out and out and out and out. But in the moment of intoxication, I don't or didn't consider any of that. But it does.
Yeah,
It affects so many people, so many relationships, and it's not positive, that's for sure.
no. I think at this point, that where you just stopped right there, I think this is a great point to stop here for right now, and pick this back up. So I'm gonna pause this video, and 'cause I'm gonna break this up into a couple sections. So I'm gonna pause this now,